Okay, let's start. My name is Mark Söster, and I work for an organization called IPMO, or Inspired Project Management Outcomes. And what we like to do is we like to inspire organizations to manage projects, portfolios, and resources in a consolidated and repeatable manner to become more productive. And today's presentation is about the ability for organizations to manage their projects, their teams, their resources, and the ability to report against that. However, every organization is a little bit different when it comes to measuring productivity. Productivity is a big word, and for every organization it's a little bit different. So I wanted to make sure that we understand what productivity is for us. Productivity really is the ability for us to produce something that the organization produces, of course, in the most efficient manner. And for those of you who work in teams, you know that this can actually be quite difficult. It sounds quite easy, but it is actually quite challenging. Now, the way that I'm going to talk about project management and resource management in comparison to productivity is I'm going to bring it down to the data set. And I think this is where I can get you techies. Have you ever met a project manager that said, hey, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a project manager? So it's quite interesting. Most project managers in organizations like yours, I would think you are very much technically focused. You will have project managers that come from a development background, that may come from a technical administration background, or may even come from a business background. But really, ultimately, we are trying to accomplish something as an organization. And for us, that means we need to make sure that we understand what we want to measure. So it is work. Work for me is the amount of time or effort that it takes to accomplish something. This can either be a good or this can be a service, of course. So work is a very, very important component in the way that we manage resources and projects. So you will hear the word work. The word work, you will hear that quite often. Another word for work is actually effort, so the amount of effort that it takes. And of course, on the other hand, we need to make sure that we understand exactly what type of work is it that we produce. I mean, we have, we can produce something with machines, or we can produce something with resources. This presentation here is about human resources. So it's not about any kind of machinery that you may want to make more efficient. For us, the machines is you and I are the humans really behind it. And I'm sure you understand that as soon as humans are involved, well, then as soon as you want to make something happen, you need to start communicating. And really, when it comes to the most efficient way of being productive, we need to think about how can we communicate with our team. And look, there's usually a whole bunch of processes that need to be defined to communicate. And depending on the size of the organization, these are either very strict processes or quite loose processes. Today, I'm going to ensure that we cover all types of organizations, from a very large organization down to a small team or department. And I'm going to use Microsoft Project, and I'm going to use Microsoft Project Online, which forms part of the Office 365 stack. And at the end, I would also like to introduce a new tool that is called the Planner. Who has heard of the Planner here? A couple of you, that's great. So Planner is a new capability that Office 365 will introduce in the next couple of weeks. So please watch that space. And if you're a tenant who uses Office 365, I expect all hands up. No? Well, that will happen. That will happen eventually. And we need to make sure that if you are a tenant, you need to make sure that you're an early adopter, and then you will get that Planner as well. So really, when we are talking about measuring productivity, we can't just say, hey, you know what, this John guy, he just doesn't get stuff done. You know, this is a very subjective way of measuring productivity. We actually measure productivity on data, on numbers. And in order for us to measure the data, we need to make sure that we capture the data. And I will make I will make a point throughout the entire presentation that the data capture is the most important part when it comes to the analysis of your productivity. The question that we always need to ask us is, hey, how do we actually capture our data set? Now, when you look at a couple of those things, you know, your capacity, your utilization, the work, the effort, you know, how do you actually capture that in an organization today? And the big question is, do you capture that in a consistent manner? And if that's the case, then you have the ability to actually measure your productivity. And let's not forget, productivity is an average for us. We want to increase that, of course, over time. And the only way that we can do that is with hard numbers, obviously. And this is where technology comes into place. Microsoft spent, as we all know, a lot of money going down the SaaS path, going down the Office 365 path. And for us as an organization, that has not only positively changed our business, it actually allowed us to service a lot of different organizations. And the reason why that is so important is because the data capture becomes more and more intuitive. I don't know whether you've heard that, but Microsoft actually in the project and productivity space has purchased quite a few products over the last couple of months. If I have a little bit of time, I will actually show you some of them that will integrate, or that they seamlessly integrate into Microsoft Project Online. My question to you, who knows what Microsoft Project Online actually is? Hands up. Awesome. Okay, Project Online is actually the wrong word. It should actually be called a little bit different, and I hope that this will happen. Project Online skews the message of saying, oh, look, it's MS Project that we are talking about. Who thinks that we are talking about MS Project here? Who hopes that we are talking about MS Project here? Who doesn't care? All right. So we need to make sure that we understand Microsoft introduced Microsoft Office 365 Project Online. In other terms, Project Online is nothing else but Project Server in the cloud, right? So that means as an organization, I can manage in a consolidated manner all of my projects. I can prioritize my projects in a portfolio manner, and I can manage my entire global resource pool. And that's what you and most organizations do generally in Excel, if I may say. Who manages projects in Excel? No, it's not a project management tool, believe it or not. And no, it's not a schedule tool. No, scheduling, and this is where the second component comes into place. Project Online forms that project portfolio or enterprise project management capability. And MS Project, the desktop that we all know, is nothing else but a schedule engine. The ability for me to schedule an individual project. But as an organization, I want to have that consolidated. So that's the reason why I want to make sure that we understand why we're here today. We are here today to show you all elements. I want to show you the enterprise way. I want to show you a team project way, and I want to show you a departmental way of how you can become more productive. So the reason why we want to capture data ultimately is, well, in some form we need to visualize them. We want to be able to create reports. And the only reason why we ask our resources, for example, to enter timesheets, or our project managers to schedule tasks and create work breakdown structures, is so that we can have a visual component. The reason why that is so important is because reports allow us to make objective decisions. Now, I implement the stuff in many, many different organizations, and most organizations manage resources based on gut. Now, who is honest enough to raise their hand and say, yeah, look, we've captured it in Excel, but it's gut feeling. Thank you for your honesty. I hope that we can change that. And I hope, and especially large organizations need to change that, because productivity or efficiency means reducing cost basis, and especially in the economy that we are in today, we need to reduce that cost base. So for us, it's very important that we have things that allow us to consolidate all of our projects in a very, very simple way. This is the project center in Project Online that allows you literally to look at different projects or all of your projects group or filtered by certain criteria. In that instance, it's the owner or the project manager that I filter that. But look, who works in a PMO here, by the way? Just quickly? None? No one? Okay, I'll explain one. PMO, Project Management Office. Not Project Manager out, that's not the thing. So the Project Management Office, this is the brain of bringing all of the work together, because at the end of the day, projects are nothing else but pieces of work. Now, some people call BAU work, some call it minor projects, some call it major projects, but ultimately we are talking about work. And in some form, we need to be able to map that work to our resource pool. In order for us to do that, we need to understand how many projects do we have, and we need to understand what is the current utilization of my organization, of my resource pool. So when I look at that at a glance in a department, I can tell you that green means absolutely optimal utilized, blue means underutilized, red means overutilized. Within a glance, ladies and gentlemen, can I see the ability to whether I can take on jobs or not? Whether I actually have too many resources. How often do you have to go to your boss and say, I need more resources? And your boss turns around and says, show it to me. This allows you to be objective. So today, and of course from there on, you then want to have the ability to drill down into the assignment. And the assignment is nothing else but the piece of work that I have and the resources that I have, that I link them together. So the terminology assignment means I give you a piece of work that I expect you to do for a particular or at a particular amount of time. And as you can see here, for example, I can look at an individual resource. I can look at their capacity. The capacity is the total amount of time that a resource spends at an organization. It doesn't matter whether they twiddle their thumb or whether they're on a project or not. Capacity is the time that you pay that resource. Whereby the availability is the time capacity minus the assigned work. So therefore, I can very easily determine whether someone is over or underutilized. If I assign someone for more than 8 hours, he's overutilized, etc., etc. And yes, for those of you government workers, I can also do it with 7.6 hours. Okay. So really, the ability for us to drill down, the ability for us to give an objective view is most important. So what I'm about to show you is a demonstration times 3. 3 demonstrations today. Demonstration number 1 focuses on portfolio management, organizational, large customers, executives, the ability for us to ensure that our projects are aligned to our strategy and all of those things. The second presentation I'm going to show you is more a project management view, a team view, the ability for you to communicate utilizing Microsoft tool sets, and I'm not going to just say MS Project, I'm going to show you SharePoint, I'm going to show you OneDrive, I'm going to show you OneNote, I'm going to show you all of these wonderful things that these days seamlessly integrate. Most young'uns don't even know the difference between Outlook and OneNote anymore. They just push a button because they are just after the functionality. And really that intuitive work management starts to become extremely important for an organization. And if you want to make sure that you become more effective and efficient, then make sure that the UI that you choose to capture these data sets is intuitive and is manageable. Now, Microsoft acquired 5 apps from a company called Sensei. Sensei, a wonderful company in America, fully concentrated on project management. I will actually show you some of their apps that they now integrate, oh, by the way, yes, free of charge into Project Online because you only have to pay the subscription. That means you then have the ability to utilize your Mobile phone to update your task, to update your timesheet comes now. You have the ability to use your iPad, your Surface, any kind of means to capture and retrieve data. I will show you that as well. So the second presentation is very much about that project team focus. And the third capability is the classical, I call it work management, where we may not need to be all that structured. We are a small team, and I just can communicate. Hey, Catherine, I want you to do these 3 pieces of work. Have you done them, yes or no? That kind of thing, okay? So, portfolio management. Oh, they refreshed that. See, I should have not given them the slides. Never mind. Team management and the work management. So these are the 3 things. I start with the most complex one because I know it's late. And if I have your attention now, it goes downhill from there, obviously, and it makes it a little bit easier, though. So the portfolio management component for us. I want to be able to manage my global resource pool. And I want to be able to say, hey, I have 10 different departments. And of those 10 departments, I have resources. And I, as a project manager, now need to request resources from those departments based on their skill set. Is that something that sounds familiar to you? How do you formalize that? Look, let's have a meeting and we'll get together with the team and all of those things, and then we agree, and then we go back, and then I do what I want anyway. So I want to make sure that you understand Microsoft Project Online has introduced a new formalization of your resource demand, and I'll show you that. The big benefit is obviously real resource optimization and formal resource management. Look, if you're in a little shop that has 10 or 20 people, you don't need formal resource management. But if you work for a large organization, for Telstra, for Optus, for, I don't know, Fortescue, Centos, all of those organizations, you will need a much more formal approach. It's better for the team, it's better for the project manager, and ultimately it's better for the individual, because I know exactly what I need to do next week and the week after. The second one is more as I said, more a project-centric view, and I leave Project Online at that point in time, and I will just simply use Office 365, a team site, SharePoint, in conjunction with MS Project. That's very interesting. And lastly, as I already mentioned, I would like to introduce the planner, soon to be in your Office 365 subscription store. Do you need to pay for it? No, you don't. Well, yes, you do, but you pay for it on your monthly subscription. So that's the presentations that I want to go through. Just very quickly, for those of you who are interested in Project Online, which is obviously that formalization, I want to introduce you the team. So we will talk about 3 different sets of resources. We will talk about the team, which is the team that executes the project. We will talk about the project manager. Sorry. We will talk about, and they use Office 365, you can't hide. He doesn't know. Oh, Ben, I am so sorry. And then we have project managers who actually need to bring all of these ingredients together and need to convince the executive management to spend more money and explain why we run over and explain why we deliver late and not to the scope that we want. Oh no, sorry, that's the project manager that doesn't use Project Online. The Project Online user knows all of that stuff. And then, of course, lastly, we want to make sure that, I call it the resource manager, is probably more the team lead, however you want to call it, the person that is in charge of managing that resource pool, okay? The requirements needs to know what they are working on from a team perspective. Relies on the resources. How often does it happen that project managers have a resource, they work for them for 2 days, but then an issue occurs or BAU work needs to happen and the team lead takes them away from the project back into the day-to-day work. It's a normal thing and it does happen all the time. The question is, how do I communicate that? And then lastly, of course, the balance, and I find that actually very hard, the difference, the balancing between how much work can I give you on a project and how much work do I need you to do on my individual department. I'm sure this is something that is also a very, very common issue because we do share resources across those things. All right. look, I do my presentations front first. I bore you with PowerPoint, and then I'll show you the actual stuff. So I promise you, once we've gone through those, I'll do the presentations, and we will then stay in demos. Just very quickly, for those of you who have not heard of Project Online, I wanted to make sure that you know the capabilities. If you work with software like Clarity, HP PPM, Primavera, those kinds of things, forget about them, come and join the world. Project Online actually does that and has that capability from really project management, team management, executive PMO, resource management. Watch that space. I would be highly surprised if Microsoft doesn't turn around and rename that. I hope it does, because Project Online is actually a very misleading name. Look in brackets, I'm just going to keep on calling it PPM, Project Portfolio Management, just because. Okay. Demo 1, the engagement model. This is the situation. We work for a large organization. I'm a project manager, and I just received a business case. I need to initiate my project. Project has been created in Project Online. I now need to create my work breakdown structure utilizing a task, and I need to know who is responsible for that. Now, I could just assign a role and then submit that role request to the right resource, and there could replace it with a named resource. The named resource is the person like you and I. I skip that, and I'm going to assign the named resources. So I, as the project manager, will say, hey, I need a resource. And I'm going to do that in MS Project. That's that new engagement model that Microsoft introduced. And they're going to the project manager is going to post that or requests that to the resource manager. The resource manager then gets a notification and can look at that request and determine whether he would like to do that by balancing the information between project work and business as usual work. The team and that business as usual work is actually the difficult part. The way that the resource manager does that is through visualizations, different visualizations, and I'll show you different ones so that they know whether they can commit that resource or not, and then ultimately approves that, and the project manager then has the ability to not only assign the resource, but at the point when this resource is approved, these tasks can move into the Project Online timesheet. Yes, it does have a timesheet. It's actually one of the most common mistakes, that timesheets need to be very complicated. Now, Project Online has a very nice timesheet capability. And by updating the timesheet, it will automatically also update the schedule again, so that the project manager then communicates directly to the team. And that's what I'm about to show you. So, in order for me to outline this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log on to Project Online. Now, as you can see, Project Online is nothing else but yet again another crumb of my waffle, as I like to call them, of Office 365. And as you can see, I have a whole bunch of capabilities. In the past, you had to install 50,000 different servers and had to make them work with each other. This is just nice and seamlessly, and one of those is called Project. And when you select Project, that's essentially what you get. Not a lot of customization, just a couple of Excel reports. You can actually utilize Excel to retrieve the information, just like you can do that in SharePoint as well, and you have real-time data at any point in time. As a project, as a PMO and as a project manager, I'm going to select my projects link, and as part of that project link, I am now in that project center. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to group and filter these kinds of views. I like to call them online views. That's what they're actually called. And I can look at the entire cost of all of my projects, for example. So I can see some projects we don't manage costs, other projects we do manage costs. We can see over budget, under budget, variations. And of course, I can very easily report against it. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. I may have to scroll, but I can see some people are going like, is that something on the screen? Yes, there is something on the screen. And look, each individual project, the lowest level of information here is actually the project itself. So if I would now select that link, I drill into the project where I, as a project manager, can do anything. At the same time, I can see whether I manage risks, issues, documents already. So it's actually quite comprehensive and in a nice centralized cockpit, let's call it. Now I'm going to drill into my Australian Ignite project, and the first thing that you see is actually my project schedule that I created. Now when you create a project in Project Online, you can associate a workflow for approval, stage gates approval, etc. You can determine what type of project schedule template you would like to have. You can determine what kind of process you want to associate to that project, whether you'd like to manage that project in an agile manner, in a waterfall manner, in a customized process manner. And each individual project has also a project-specific website, a project site, which is technically a SharePoint team site with some smarts. I know some of you actually use SharePoint and team sites to manage their projects. Hey, wouldn't it be great if I have the ability to maintain content on a project and automatically get a consolidated view? That's something you can't do easily with SharePoint at that point in time. Project Online gives you that natively. However, as a project manager, I on the left-hand side have now all of my project-related information. So I have, for example, my project summary. My project summary outlines my workflow. We like to visualize workflow. Pictures talk more than 1,000 words, and as you can see, I can very clearly see where my stage gates are, what kind of information I need to provide, and that type of information can easily be provided here. Current progress update, project financials, indicators, schedule finances, so you can actually determine what kind of content and attributes you'd like to capture here. And that then ends up in, well, not just in a project status report, and this one is a nice example. We had a little customization done here where I am just very simply maintain project information in my project status report. So the information comes from my schedule, comes from my project sites, and I can now go into that site and I can say, hey, I would like to edit that, and I'm going to change my status from, I don't know, active to on hold. I can save that, and that will then post it back. And ultimately, I also have the ability to just simply export that into a PDF file. And within a push of a button, have I created a project status report. Now, the reason why I say that is because by trade I'm an accountant, and I needed to put profit and loss statements and balance sheets. I always needed to produce them for executive management, and really you work towards that in a financial environment till the end of the month, and then you push a button, and that button is the production of that report. And that is actually a very efficient way of dealing with that. We wanted to do exactly the same, and utilizing Project Online, you actually have the ability to do exactly that. But that's not the reason why and obviously you can create summary reports and all of those things, no problem at all. However, the reason why I'm here is I want to show you how I, as a project manager, have my template. I don't have a lot of tasks right now, and I need to now assign my resources. So that's what I'm going to do. I can either manage that schedule in the browser or in MS Project. Now, in the browser means that you don't have as much capability as you would in MS Project, of course. But for smaller projects, for repetitive projects, that's perfectly fine, especially because you can now also baseline in the browser. But what I do is I'm going to open it up in MS Project, and there's that seamless integration. It's not even integrated. There is no integration. That just works. It now opens it up. Now my tenant is in Hong Kong or in Singapore, so it may take a split second longer. And what you see here now is MS Project. MS Project sees that I have actually assigned some resources here already, but then there are some other tasks. Milestone tasks, well, I don't want to assign resources on milestones, but I want to be able to assign my resources here in one of those tasks. Now, the easiest way to do that is I navigate to my resource button, and my global resource pool comes. Because I am connected to Project Online, it recognizes my entire workforce that I can use. You can group that by a whole bunch of different ways. You can filter it, and you can very easily add it. So if I wanted to add myself to this project, I would just simply add myself as a team, and I have now created that team membership, right? Now I have the ability to assign those resources. And hey, I'm project manager 1, I like Utkarsh. Utkarsh is going to be assigned to this task and to that task. And now you probably, and obviously you can just drag that down, and now you will see on the left-hand side there is this yellow icon. That's new and has only been introduced recently. And if you use Project Server 2013, well, tough luck. You need to wait until 2016 comes out, or even better, you go down the Project Online path, because then you get constantly those updates on a regular basis. But what this tells me is that I have now assigned a resource that I haven't had approval for. And it's great that I assign them there, and it's great that I can publish that, but that resource will not know up until the resource manager actually approves that. So I create my assignments, and then I need to be in a position to say, well, I want to create a so-called resource plan, and that's the resource plan that I want to submit to that resource manager. The resource manager really is not interested whether he needs to do task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He wants to know what's the start date, what's the finish date, how much effort do you have him to do? And that's exactly what that resource engagement model does. Isn't it a great Office 365? So therefore, I'm going to right-click on this particular task, and I'm going to say, hey, fix my engagement through the engagement inspector. So again, it's very rich on its capability, and what it does is it gives you now different views where you can interrogate the data, where you can say, well, okay, this is Utkarsh, and he is assigned to those resources. I don't have him available yet, and really I need him from the 19th to the 30th, because these are the two tasks here. So what I'll do is I'm just simply going to create a so-called engagement model, and it automatically recognizes the resource because I selected those tasks or the resource, and then I can say, hey, from the 19th, and I'm going to extend that to the 30th, I would need Utkarsh either 100% of his time, or alternatively I could say I need him for 30 hours or 40 hours. So it's very much up to you to determine how you would like to organize that. I'm going to keep the units, and I'm going to send a comment in, and I'm going to say to the resource manager, hey mate, Utkarsh rocks. And that's why I need him. Or maybe, hey, he worked on that project before, or I've worked with him before. You may want to add a comment. And I'll say, okay. And what happened now is it actually has created a so-called resource plan. Now, the resource plan itself has not been submitted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that resource plan, and you can see that I already had Utkarsh committed on one of those resource plans, but this is the resource plan I just did. So from the 19th to the 30th, 100% of his time, I would like to have Utkarsh, but at this point in time it's still in draft. I have not sent that. I can now change that, I can save it and all of those things, but there will come the day where you want to submit that to the resource manager. And what I'll do now is I'm just going to submit all of those resource engagements, and you can see that that resource plan now moves from draft to proposed, and a notification has been sent out to the resource manager, and that resource manager can now check whether he can actually commit to that allocation or not. So far, so good? So that's the project manager side. Created a project, created my work breakdown structure, assigned my demanded resources, created my resource plan, submitted that resource plan to the resource manager. What I'll do is I'm going to close that now. And I'm going to take my project management head off, and I'm going to put my resource management head on. In order for me to do that, I'm going to, obviously I don't need to log in, log out. I'm going to pretend to be the resource manager now. Now, first of all, as the resource manager, I have the ability to look at all of my resources in the so-called resource center. In that resource center, I have my team. This is now grouped by role. You can group that by department, by location, by any attribute that you capture for this particular resource. And of course, I have now also the approved assignments of my resource pool. So in here, for example, Sue, oh man, Sue is 151 hours allocated to work. What kind of work is that? And there you can very easily determine that. So you can really have that visibility, but I'm after the request of a resource. So what I'll do is I'm going to navigate to my resource requests button, and when I navigate to that, it will actually now give me all of the resources I'm in charge of that that have been requested. Now, as you can see, there are already some requests that I committed earlier, so I'm not really interested in that. I'm going to just simply filter them out. But this is the one that was proposed 100% from the 19th to the 30th. This is exactly what I as a project manager submitted. Now, I can edit that. You can edit the time phase the project, can say, well, you can have him 2 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Tuesday, 6 hours on Wednesday, or you can say, yeah, you can have him and just simply accept it, or you can reject it. But before I can make that decision, I need to know whether this resource has actually been committed or not. The way that I do that is I'm going to look at the capacity planning, and this is another way where I, as a resource manager, have full control of my resources by showing them that visibility. Sorry, my browser is a bit... So what I can see here right now is that Utkarsh is the resource that I selected, and this is his current availability. So he's pretty much free. Great. What that means is I now want to see my so-called engagement heat map, and in that engagement heat map, I have the ability to determine whether that resource is over or under allocated. Now, in my instance, Utkarsh is under allocated because it's blue. The color, you can actually determine when this should be green, blue, or red by simply choosing 10%, 5% over or underutilization. Sometimes we do ask our staff to work a little bit longer. So this is a nice way. So I can very clearly see that, hey, if Utkarsh can actually be approved because he still has that availability. Actually, he has still, how much? 12 days? 12 days availability, so perfect. I can actually now make him, I can now accept that resource plan. So what I'll do is I'll go back into my request, and within this request, I now have the ability to say, I would like to accept that. I can add a comment to that engagement if I wanted to, but most importantly, now this is the formalization between me as a project manager and my team role. Now, I'm sure you ask 50,000 questions. Well, how does the resource? How do you know who the resource manager is? Can I have double approval and all of those things? And all of those things are possible. I wanted to show you the most complex way. Actually, no, the most formal way of requesting resources and then working with those resources. What I can do now is I can now assign that resource, and I can say this resource may be 3 weeks on my project, but I only have 2 weeks approved. And if I go a step further and utilize the timesheet, I can say, oh, and he actually only worked 5 days on your project. That's the data you require in order to become more productive, in order to optimize yourself. It's a very quick preso. I understand that this is quite, backwards and forwards, but I wanted to outline that complexity of the formalization of resource requests. All right. Now, of course, as soon as I, as the project manager, which I quickly will do, so I now approve that as a resource manager. What does the project manager see? Well, let's have a quick look. I'm going to go to this Australian Ignite project. I'll open up that project in MS Project again. It, of course, recognizes the approval, and as you can see, these icons have disappeared. And when I now publish my project, these tasks will actually flow into the resources task update or timesheet. So this is how this can work. That's that organizational global resource capability. All right. So as I said, I showed you the most complex one at the start because I know that it takes a little while to inhale that, but that is that formal engagement model. A lot of organizations are very much interested in it, and I work with organizations that do that formalization in a SharePoint list that is dispersed from Project Server or Project Online. Now with Project Online, you literally have that as a one-stop shop. You can report against that. That information is available through OData, by the way, and you can do and manipulate that data set as much as you want. The second demo is more, well, let's lighten up a little bit. Let's not be quite as quite as formal and restrictive. Let's imagine you have a project approved, you have a team, and now you as a project manager need to manage artifacts, need to manage your project schedule, need to manage a project status report. And ideally, you don't want to double handle information. You want to make sure that this is all done in one hit. So what we are doing next is, as a project manager, I create a team site. That team site is nothing else but SharePoint Online. You can use SharePoint on-prem as well, of course, as of 2013. And then I use Project Pro for Office 365, which is nothing else but MS Project Professional, to connect my tasks with the task list of SharePoint. And through that, I can automatically receive updates and can, because MS Project has a great reporting capability now, can actually automate my status report. And that's what I'll show you now. So in order for me to do that, I will navigate to my team site. Now it's not pretty, it's nice and ugly. I wanted to make sure that we understand this is an out-of-the-box SharePoint team site. And it's just a little bit of content here. On the left-hand side, I created an issue list and a task list and OneNote and document library, typical of a team site in SharePoint, essentially. Now, in my tasks, what I can do is I can start outlining certain bits of information. Now, this is nothing else but a SharePoint task list. You can either create a new task by selecting the nice plus button and fill in that information, and obviously you can determine the content that you may want to outline here. Or alternatively, a lot of people say, nah, that's why I like Excel so much, because I can just simply have it in a grid. Well, I can do that too. So task 3, task 4, task 5. So very quickly can I now create a list of things that I need to do. And you can do that to the team, with the team. You can even say, hey, why don't you assign yourself to that? I just created that, so I'll say Mark, and there's Sue. I want Sue to do this one here. And as you can see, you can very easily create that. We haven't set dates and all of those things. All we said is these are the tasks that we need to do. I stopped that now, and as you can see, I have created just a normal list of tasks, nothing special. However, for those of you who have SharePoint Online, you will see that there is now a button that says open this in MS Project. And what I do is I open that up, and what happens now is it downloads, it synchronizes the task list with MS Project automatically. I haven't had to do anything there. All I did is I pushed that button, it opened up MS Project. I still had it open, obviously, and as you can see right now, I have my list of tasks. Now, I, as a project manager now, can of course manipulate that. I can say, hey, here's my summary task, and of that summary task, I want to make sure that these 5 tasks form a subtask, and then I have a milestone. Milestone at the end, and very quickly do you have the ability to to create a nice schedule. Now, in addition to that, I now want to also determine the amount of work, or even better, if you want to manage costs, you now have the ability to say, hey, Mark is going to cost me, my cost type, where is it? Mark is going to cost me $100 and Sue is going to cost me $200. So I can now also associate cost to that. And by associating, of course, the resource to the task, I also have automatically the cost breakdown. And I can now very easily already determine my overarching cost of $5,600. great to know that in MS Project, but I want to communicate that to my team. How am I going to do that? Well, under the file of MS Project, you have the ability to actually say, I would like to add additional information from my project into the list. And in my instance, it's actually the cost. So I'm going to add the cost, my cost in here. You can have baseline cost, actual work, remaining work, percentage completed, any type of content and information you manage on your task. You can manage that and transfer that into SharePoint. So what it does now is it utilizes that cost and creates a SharePoint column or field called cost. And I say, okay, and I'm going to save that. And what it does now is it synchronizes. It synchronizes my changes, including the dependencies and all of those wonderful things. And of course, it also now pushes the cost into the SharePoint field. By the way, if you think that you can only manage labor cost in MS Project, be rest assured that's not the case. You can manage any type of cost, whether that's a fixed cost, a material cost, or just simply a cost item, no problem at all. What I've done now is I've literally moved that over. Let's have a look what that looks like in my SharePoint environment. So I'm going to close that here. I'll close that as well because we already had that. And I'll go back into my SharePoint environment, and as you can see, now all of the tasks and summary tasks have been created. I can even go and show you my Gantt chart and have exactly the same information that you have than you have in MS Project. And if you want to add this particular, I'm just going to say all tasks here. If you want to add costs in here, all I need to do is I need to say, hey, I would like to modify that view. And now I have my cost in there as well. And of course, in that view, you now have all of the costs as well. You can sum that and do all of those things if you're interested in sharing that type of information. Where it makes a lot of sense is work. Again, is effort. Hey, I expect you to work 10 hours on that task, or can you tell me how long you need? That kind of stuff. Wow, quite amazing. Now let's spice that up because we're only talking about task management. It's not really, really exciting having a list. What is exciting, on the other hand, is having a timeline. And for those of you who work with SharePoint, of course, know the timeline already. What I do is I'm going to go to a task list, one I prepared earlier, that just has a little bit of a work breakdown structure here so that I have a bit of data. And again, what I do is I'm just going to open that up. It's essentially the same schedule that I just had, just with a little bit more life. That's all. Now, it downloads that. And I want to make sure that my team understands what the timeline is. So in Project, I have the ability to visualize quite a lot of things these days. Now, one of those visualizations is a so-called timeline, if I then find it. There we go. The timeline is nothing else, and you can add multiple timelines, by the way, is nothing else but the ability for me to say, hey, I think my task, my summary task takes that long. And I think my summary task 2 takes that long. There's a milestone I like to display, and I want to also display that milestone. I may want to have an overarching task, but it's very ugly doing it this way, so I'm just going to use a so-called a call out and can literally make that a very attractive way of communicating your timeline. You know who's interested in that? I'm just going to take the time scale away. Your executive managers are interested in that, believe it or not. All they want to know is, hey, do you spend the money and do you spend too much? Do you deliver as promised? And where are we? They're the only 3 things that they're interested in, nothing else. Make sure that they get the data, and your project will be a raving success. However, this is not to the executive in that instance, which, by the way, you can do. You can just simply copy that, email it, all of those things, of course, utilizing MS Project. But what I want to do is I just want to do nothing else but send that information back to my team site. And now what happens is, not only do I have the content in SharePoint, I now also have that team that timeline in my project site. Let's have a look. Now in here, I'll go back to my project site. On my project site, yeah, okay, I did do something. By default, by the way, the task summary is there. I just hidden it. Otherwise, I would have taken away the flung. I didn't want to do that. I'm just going to restore that there, if that's all right. And now what you can see is on my home page a nice timeline that outlines where I am today, where I am, where I need to be, plus my tasks that are overdue, that are due. It's a nice carousel that brings the stuff around. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about making administration more fun, a little bit more viable, more interesting, vital for you to manage your projects. That's what we're talking about here. That's just technology. And it's pretty cool what Microsoft does these days. Now, as a project manager, that's great. But as a team member, I want to be able to update my tasks as well. So I'm going to go into my task list. And this is a very simple, again, when we spoke about the overarching organization, there had to be very rigor, very detailed. Here I'm just after percentage completed or actual and remaining work. So what I can do as the resource, all I do is I say, hey, you know what, I did a little bit of work on here. I'm 100% completed here. I'm about 20% through with this one here, and that's it. And I stop that. So I, as a team member, I may even want to only see my tasks, and I can see my tasks. This is nothing else but SharePoint functionality. I can update that information. And what I, as a project manager, can do is I can say, hey guys, have you updated your tasks? Yes, we have. Great. Let's open up the project, and all I need to do now is open it up, it synchronizes it, and it updates. Check, did you see? It updated. Task 1 is 100% completed. Task 2 or task 3 is a little bit completed. Great. Why is that so great? Well, now I have to open up Word, and now I have to copy and paste, and I have to create my so-called project status report. Well, for those of you who don't have MS Project, need to do that. For those of you who have MS Project 2013 or for Office 365, you now have a fully flexed reporting tool set available. So in here, I can now go into my reports, and I have predetermined reports that come out of the box. For example, my cost overview report. Now, I don't want to see that with the timeline. I just take that out. You have the ability to look at your, cost overview report. So very quickly, do you have visibility? This is data that came from your project site that came over. You did not touch this data. You just approved it. That's the difference. Now, if you want to, you can even create your own report. Very easy. Look, this is a blank canvas. And as part of this blank canvas, I can very easily add my information. Tables, there we go. This is my project with my start, my finish information. If I want to have some more or less data, here's my entire task data set. Here's my entire resource data set. Do you want to have some graphs? We'll give you some graphs. The entire Excel-like data set is available. This is, I don't know whether that's right or not, dear project team, please forgive me. This is stolen from Excel. No, it's taken from Excel, and that Excel reporting engine has been built into MS Project here, which is amazing. Look at that. And really, you update the project, and it updates this automatically. Now, here's one I prepared earlier. Not that it's pretty. You can pretty it up as much as you like. I just created a project status report. Look at that. It's a normal project status report in MS Project, utilizing the tasks list I maintain in my team site that my team tells me. They take the responsibility and update it. And all I need to do is I need to open up project. This is my report, and all I need to do is I need to say save as, file, actually export, save it as a PDF. It's now, because it knows it's connected to the project site, it now looks at the document library and allows me to say, here's my status report 2. Sorry, I just created one a little bit earlier to have a backup. And I have now created a project status report. Imagine you now have a little notification in your document library in your SharePoint environment that just notified the PMO saying, hey, this guy has created the new project status report. That's the type of efficiency I'm talking about. Take away administration, make your life easier by not double handling the data, and utilize the time to actually ensure that the data is of high quality. Back in my project side, I'm going to go into my documents, and What can I see? Well, I can, of course, see my documents in here. Open it up. Let's have a look. There we go. All right, that was one of them. There's another one. Now, that's great. So far, so good. So we have created project site. We create all of our risks and issues and everything in there, documents, notes, tasks are updated, costs are updated. Now, before I, though, want to ensure that, before I want to bring this to my executive, I want to make sure that my schedule reflects reality. 9 out of 9 schedules don't reflect reality. It's that 10th one that sometimes does. How can I do that? Well, again, I'm going to start with, and this may be of interest for your developers now, as of now, Project enables you to write back via via JSON, via App Store stuff. That was something that wasn't possible up until 3-4 weeks ago. I'll show you what clever partners like we do in order to ensure that data consistency is in place. Again, I'm going to refer to Sensei, the American company who has just been, well, their product's just been bought. They are in the process, and by the way, we partner with them very heavily. They are in the process of releasing their next version, for example, of their schedule analytics. And look at that. It really is as easy as a project manager. I open this up, and it interrogates my schedule and tells me straight away, hey, there are some issues, some warnings, some messages. So I wouldn't want to give this to my boss. Well, what are the issues? And here, larger organization, you can incorporate your own schedule rules. So in my instance here, I can have a summary of my compliance summary. I have the ability to look at schedule issues. I have an overarching summary of all of my warnings. I can look at certain checks that I need to do. But most importantly, right now, I want to resolve those 2 issues. So I'm going to select those issues, and these are the 2 issues. Look at that, milestone 1. Which is task ID 5. I'm going to open that up. Resource should not be assigned to milestone tasks. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Now I have to go through and have to take all of those resources of the milestones. Or I just simply push that fix button and look at that. It fixes it for you. So what I'm saying is there are tools out there in the store that will make your life as project managers much easier. Reflecting reality is key here, making sure that the data consistency is there. Take the double handling of time away, and focus on that quality data insurance. And get those types of tools. Please interrogate the SharePoint store. There are lots and lots of these kinds of tools. They're either free of charge or they cost a little bit of money, but in comparison to what you get in return, it is actually quite amazing. So that is, and I'm conscious of time, at 6 o'clock, I'm spot on. That is my team managing a project team presentation. Remember, the first one was organizational wide. The second one really was very much about, I have already got the project approved. I need to manage that. I want to make sure to become much more productive and more efficient. That's the way how you do it. Last but not least, that's the cool stuff now. Now, what I'm about to show you is how you manage work. It's not just projects. They are, I'm just going to call them initiatives, things to do, whatever you want to call them. It's work that needs to be done. Get the job done. The way that you do that these days is if you're not a big organization and don't require a big project online installation, but you still want to be able to work with your team in a collaborative manner, that's where the planner comes into place. So the planner is really, and this will be released very shortly, the planner is for, let's call it for a department that has maybe 10 or 15 or 20 people, a marketing department, and says, look, I've got all of these initiatives, marketing initiative here and sales initiative there, and I just want to capture that. And I want to have it at one spot. And that's what the planner can do. It incorporates seamlessly all of the Office tools that you have available in Office 365. That includes OneNote, OneDrive, Project, and in watch that space in a couple of months once Planner is released. The next step then is to integrate Planner with Project Online, by the way. so that you can actually manage your entire work there. Outlook and your entire office tools. So Word, Excel, all of those things, right? Let's have a look how that looks like. It's simple, and that's the idea of it. It needs to be simple. You shouldn't need to have a 2-day training course on Planner. If you do, you're in the wrong job. You need to make sure that this is nice and easy and maintainable. So again, this is my tenant, Office 365 tenant, and I navigated to the Planner. That's what the Planner looks like. Oops, sorry, lots of people. This is what the Planner looks like. It gives me an overarching view, and sorry, I'm just going to refresh that because I have, hello? That happens when you talk too much. Let me just, sorry. What I'll do is I'm just going to open up a new browser and open that new up. So, sorry, I just need my credentials here. Yep. That's why my wireless is not working. Well, that would explain why. Powered by Telstra. Okay. So the only big disadvantage about Office 365, you get it? All right. Look, I'm just going to try to disconnect and then reconnect. Yeah, but I have a, yes, I do. Oh, it's connected. Maybe it does it. Maybe it does it. Maybe it does it. Yay. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly sign in here. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is the planner, and this is the hub. So I can actually determine what kind of initiatives do I want to see in my favorite lists or not. And as you can see, it's very visual. It shows you tasks that are not started, excuse me, late in progress or have been completed. I can drill into an existing plan, and I can start managing information. I can create boards similar to what what we do in an agile environment. I can say, hey, here's my task 1 and there's task 2, and as you can see, it's very quick and intuitive, and that's great. And now I have the ability to open this up, and now I have additional information. I could, for example, add a description. Please change the task name because no one knows what task 2 means. It's one of those areas. And because I'm German and I need it in English, it has the spell checker. And of course, I have the ability to attach documents. Now, when you create your first plan, what it does is it automatically creates a OneDrive space. It creates your OneNote space. It even creates your own calendar. And I think also your own email if you wanted to do that. I know the calendar though. Again, I can attach it. Either I can upload a file, which then would automatically upload the file into OneDrive, or I could just simply go into my OneDrive, and as you can see, I should have one document. That's the business case document that I would like to attach to this task. Excellent, very neat. And I want to make sure that I want to use that as the preview, especially when you have PowerPoint slides in a marketing environment, for example. And very quickly have you now associated that. You can now say it hasn't started. You can have a start date, due date, and just some small bits and pieces, to do in progress completed. And now literally it has taken this task 2 and has attached the file. It can even have the preview of the documents. You can drag and drop that over in good old fashion when it comes to Agile and Scrum, etc. So what I'll do is, and of course you have the ability to look at different charts here. So this is my chart that looks at the amount of tasks and who has assigned tasks and who hasn't. So Mark, for example, has one task. Okay, that's the task he hasn't completed. So it is a very nice and intuitive way of managing that. Now, if I want to make sure that I have, I don't know, minutes in my environment, you just simply open that up, and you now have your OneNote. You can take that with you. It synchronizes. It does all of those wonderful things. See, there's my kickoff meeting, and I can now add a new page and do all of that thing. I share the information with my team, and that's the whole idea. Calendar, just very quickly, I'll show you that as well. Conversations, so you can incorporate Yammer and things like that. Here's my calendar that incorporates, of course, the tasks in a calendar. You can outline that with and overlay that with Outlook, so that you know when these tasks need to be completed. There we go. This is my my calendar together with the IPMO Cloud App Planner. Looking at that, it means I can be very, very formal, my engagement model. I can work cohesively in a nice environment as a project team using SharePoint and Project and efficiently manage my project. Or I can be I don't need to be a project manager or anybody like that. All I want to do is I want to get jobs done, and I want to be able to visualize that. And that's where the planner comes into place. So these are the three areas, and I hope that either one of you are working in one of those. If you don't work and you need a job and you're a guru, give me a call. Hopefully that should sort of be the areas that you are working in as well. Well, being conscious of time, and I actually thought the party was tonight, but I was mistaken, so I can still talk for another hour. Woohoo, no kidding. Just very quickly, so sorry, this was the second one. The third one really is about the team planner. Watch that space in your Office 365 environment. Utilize that combined capability. Now, by the way, a lot of those tools can, of course, also be utilized in a mobile way, OneNote, OneDrive, etc. So you literally have project-related information anywhere. Your takeaway, and really this is the takeaway that I would like you to think about, not much. Think about, well, I call them the KPIs. What measurements is it you need to capture and need to track in order to measure your productivity? Make sure that you understand the outcome. Hey, I want to be able to increase my productivity by 10%, or I want to reduce my headcount but still achieve the same type of work. These kinds of outcome goals. Make sure you have a process. Even the planner, if nothing else, you need to tell your guys, hey, can you please update your tasks once a week or every day? Yeah, so there is a little bit of process. Don't overcomplicate it though. Make sure that you use the right tool for the right job. So if you only have 3 people and you want to manage your projects in Project Online, it's a bit of an overkill, so make sure that you understand that. Use what you have already, especially if you have Office 365. These tools are there. Don't buy other tools that do exactly the same thing that you currently already have. It's not just a one-man show, it's a team effort, but overarchingly, and if nothing else, take that away. Less is more. Don't ask your project manager or your team member to capture data that no one uses. There's nothing more frustrating. If it means that you only capture 2 or 3 values on your projects, that's perfectly fine, as long as you utilize that kind of data. And with that, I am completing my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions? Please. With? Yes. Yes is the short answer. To the point that it actually, I believe it actually creates a group, or you can create a group there. Unfortunately, it's not my tenant. I only got that from Microsoft, and I don't have the admin rights on it, so I couldn't get it all. But yes, groups does integrate with it. It makes a lot of sense, really. Yeah. That's the release that's coming out. So that will... That first release, sorry, yes, it will be first release. That's why you need to put the tick on your Office 365, and then they pump it out. Look, here in Australia, I don't know why, but Americans think that we're a little bit behind, so it always takes a week or two longer. I keep on trying to change that because A starts for U, for Australia starts before USA, but they didn't believe me. Yes, you need to take that on. Anything else? Yes? Great question. It will in the next 6 to 8 months. So there was a roadmap, and you can actually see that roadmap. If you are interested in seeing that roadmap, please ping me an email, get my card and ping me an email. I'm happy to share that. Microsoft just went through a big roadmap, and TFS and Jira are the two that are on the plan right now. Of course, both, yes. If you need it now, I do have a third-party product that does exactly that in Project Online, not in Planner DAO. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Is it a one-to-one mapping of plan to a group, or a group can have multiple plans? And also, can an individual have a plan without being a member of a group?
Okay. No, yes, yes, no. You forgot the questions? Me too. No. You can't group plans into a consolidated overarching group. That would defeat the purpose of the easiness and intuitivity. It's for that level only, but you have it per department, of course. So you can set those departmental and groups up, and then you can only see yours. But it's not like you can say, hey, plan 1 and plan 3 is going to be the project plan, something along those lines. That being said, look, what Microsoft at the moment does is they keep on going about feedback, and they increase the capability very quickly. Utilize it, learn it. I mean, that's what we are doing right now. We're just playing with it, and we give feedback of what we think is good and what's not that good. It's the first release. I'm also aware of that, but I also know how quickly they can increase that. And can an individual do that? Absolutely. You can manage your own tasks all by yourself. That being said, Microsoft purchased a new app. It's called Wunderlist. For those of you who don't know what Wunderlist is, it is Wunder is the German word for miracle. It's a miracle. No, it's just a list. And the list allows you to, and I've actually got that, and with my wife, we have our shopping in there. So anything that I do, what I need, I just put it on the list, and then when she sends me out to hunt on Saturday, I usually use that list. This Wunderlist, please have a look. That will eventually integrate with Planner and on Project Online as well, I believe. Lots. JSON, all JSON. In Project Server, it was the PSI. The PSI is decommissioned right now and is replaced with JSON, and yes, you can. And they will increase its capability. The example that I showed you in MS Project with the Task Manager, the Task Analyzer, is a prime example. This is nothing else but an Agavi app that talks to JSON and talks to project that way. So yes is the short answer, absolutely. And that's why I showed that. I wanted to encourage you to think about, look, I've got an ERP system or financial actual cost, and I want to map that. Well, that's a great example where you could do that. Yep. Any other questions? I know you guys have to come because you are due soon. Thank you very much. Thanks.